Hey, hope you're enjoying learning from Exeter Analytics Incorporated. This is just another quick video on fixing errors in Excel. So we're going to look at Excel and Power Query and data together. Now, this is sounding way more complicated than it really is. I have an Excel table. The Excel table is sorting some of the columns correctly. In other words, I can sort in ascending and descending order. But some of the columns are showing me sort A to Z or C to A, and I'll notice that it's sorting them somewhat correct, but inaccurately. What I'm finding is the error is very simple. There's either missing values, blank lines, dashes, but what happens is in the original file, when the CSV file is opened in Excel, it's converting any errors that they find in the data to text. So it's converting the entire field to text, but more importantly, the entire column. So wherever there's an error, missing value, a dash, or some kind of non-number, it's throwing the error. There's two ways to fix it, and I'm going to show you how in this video. You'll recall that we weren't able to successfully sort as required, that when we tried to sort largest to smallest, it was including values that weren't sortable. So what you will find I've learned is you select the entire column by hitting the Control Shift and down, hitting Control and C to copy it. What I'd like to do is transform that data so that it's sortable. I figured cutting and pasting it over as values would give me some inkling as to what's going on, and right away you'll notice there is a little error message in most of these. And the error message in the yellow triangle says number stored as text. It gives me the option to convert, ignore, help, edit in formula bar, and error checking options. Well, I'm pretty sure that if I convert it to number, my issues will go away. You can go ahead and select on the error message, Control Shift down, and the error message will allow you to convert every item in there, because it would be really horrible to go in there and manually change every item. So now that I'm pretty sure that my dashes were replaced by zeros, my zeros are a numeric value because I don't see any triangle error on them, and I selected the entire row, Control Shift down. I called it a row, you know what I mean, it's a column. I double checked that I have selected the whole column. I right click on the top cell and I click paste, not paste values, but paste. I go to sort largest to smallest, and voila, my problem has been fixed. We notice this problem in two places on both spreadsheets. Let's make sure that it is the case in this one. It is showing me that 10 million is not as high as 1 million because evidently it's looking at the number as a 1. Any number beginning with 1 gets sorted, and the way it's sorting it is awkward. It's different. It's obviously having the issue of it's not reading it like a number. We've determined that. For whatever reason, when brought in data from the CSV file, and it has a process of opening it in Excel, because there was a dash in there, there was an inconsistency in data format. A dash is not a number, so any incorrect value sets to the default generic data type, which is called text. Text are simply values that are encapsulated in quotation marks. It's like a direct quote. You told me there was going to be a number in this record, but there's a dash. So I'm going to make sure you're aware that I can't include this with other numbers because I can't add a non-number to a number. And the virtue of having a data type that's a number is the virtue of combining it with another number, whether it be addition, subtraction, or multiplication and division. So Excel throws that error when it notices there's something wrong with the data. That's why we call it transformation, because I'm transforming now the data that needs to be read as a number. I click on the triangle, converting it to number, clicking on only those where there were errors. Select the entire column, copying it, and we'll paste it. We'll sort largest to smallest. We will convert the dash to a 0. So somehow manually telling it to convert in Excel to what Excel reads as a number is okay. So I don't want to go into the details of it, but this dash doesn't appear like a number. But what it is, it's no longer encapsulated in quotes. It's saying read it as a non-number and throw an error should you try to do anything individual with it, instead of throwing an error on the entire column. So again, that's a little bit deeper dive for next time, but we've solved our problem. We can sort by volume. By volume works, and if you're interested in what that item is, it's SQQ in one table, and the large one is Apple. All right, and without further ado, let's go into how to use an implicit ETL tool in Windows, which is available to us when we do the following. We are going to manually open the file that I used previously, and you'll recall that the file that I used previously was accessed previously using a component within Excel called data, which is effectively a power query. So instead of going to data to open up the file, I'm going to manually open it in Excel, and I'll explain to you why that matters. Because I could pick it using data, get data. Okay. But there's this hidden process underneath the hood that's going on that's throwing a specific column for a loop. So what I want to do is manually take this file and I want to save it. And I want to save it as a CSV. And you'll notice that we already had it as a CSV, which is totally fine. I'm going to create a separate CSV file just so you understand that I'm working with a separate copy of it. I've saved it as a CSV file. I'm going to head and open the other one again in a similar fashion. I don't want to use the data tab, and I'm explaining to you why in a minute. I'm explaining to you why in just a moment. Bear with me. Because I'm basically going under the hood as a matter of fact and explaining what went on previously so you see the concept in another light. So I'm going to save this file as a CSV file, okay, which came from the database. Okay, I'm saving it as version 2. Yep, it is comma separate value. Sometimes my mouse gets ahead of itself. So I'm saving it as version 2 here. The reason is I'm going to now have these files that I don't want to use in the data model. I want to use them independently. And now that they're saved, I'm going to take a native Windows tool called Notepad. And what I'm going to do in Notepad is I'm going to open the file, and I'm going to open it so you can see what it looks like in its original format, okay, which is comma separated values. I need you to understand what it looks like for a very important reason. All right, so and okay, so let's open the CSV file so you can see what's going on. Okay, it's a comma separated value. It's really hard to read because it's not in a table. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to save this document, and I want to save it as a text. When I save it as a text, I've created a new document. When I save it as a text, I incidentally have to remove the CSV. I have to remove the CSV extension because otherwise I'm saving it as a CSV instead of a text file. Now that I've saved this CSV file as a text file, I'm going to open it in Excel. And I'm going to go to open it in Excel, and you're going to see that it's saved in my Explorer. It's now saved as a text file. Once I open it in Excel, you'll notice the text import wizard. It is a de facto transform tool. It's asking me, you're asking me to open a document. I'm going to assume you want it in table format to look at. Are you looking at it as a CSV file or not? So yes, I'm looking at it as a delimited file. Characters such as commas or tabs are used. Start the import at row 1. Yes, select data has headers. Click next. Select the appropriate delimiter, and as soon as you select the delimiter, you'll see that, okay, now I can read my data. So I hit next. I come over to the issue that I had with this particular column. It's listed as generic. That looks okay to me. Let's go back. We told it the data has headers, that it's delimited. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, I got confused. It's telling me the data type up here. So in this case, general says general converts numeric values to numbers, dates to dates, and all remaining to text. Okay, so now I know that text isn't selected on any column. Like if I really wanted to select one, I would select this one as text. Okay. If I wasn't interested in a column, I'd say do not import that column. Okay. So for this transformation exercise, we'll also remove a column. I don't care about the change in dollars because it doesn't mean anything. What matters is the change in percent. I'll click finish. The text file is now open in Excel and reading not as a text file. It's reading as a normal Excel file. But to be sure, I always go in here and now I save it. I save this file not as a text, as an Excel workbook. Okay, I come in and I add XLS so that it doesn't look like the same text file. I do my own little formatting. And my formatting actually involves inserting this table feature into it. Hang on. I go to insert table. I go to insert table. It tells me, is that the range A1 to I64? I say yes. So now I can look at my data. I go to volume. I can sort largest to smallest. Okay. So I didn't have to do the whole rigmarole of taking this, copying it, and changing it the way we did previously. It's just another way to transform the data. Okay, so I've saved this one. Okay, I'm going to the other one. So remember we had converted the first one to text. So I'm going to take the second one now. I'm selecting all files. It was this one. I'm saving it as text. I'm saving it as a text for you, saving it as a text. Now that I have it saved as a text, I'm going back to Excel, where we recently opened and converted it. We're opening the second text file. And for reinforcement, it's telling me again, okay, you're asking me to open a text file. Let's do some razzle dazzle to understand that you want this in a table, correct? Do I say yes, it's delimited. Characters such as commas or tabs are separating each field. Yes, we noticed the text file was comma separated. We go to next. We say it's a comma. Now it's sorted. Columns are what, we, instead of showing me a comma, it's interpreting end of column. So it's saying every column is an end of column. So now I got just columns. I hit next. I click on the one that I don't care about, change dollars. I say do not import that. Everything, all we did was convert the first one to text. That means we can't sort it really by numbers. We're not expecting numbers, it's written text. It opens. I insert a table on the data, and instead of copying and pasting the volume column as values, I'm using the native text to table ETL tool in Windows. They don't call it ETL because they don't really like to contradict the use of ETL as a SQL based processor function. They call that ETL when you're using database right from the database itself, when you're using files in database. So I am explaining to you why you never heard of ETL on Windows, but it really does exist, doesn't it? Sorting largest to smallest. This is a little easier. I like to do it this way. I'm also an IT nerd, and I find that doing things the way is sometimes best. So I'm no longer saving it as a text, but an Excel workbook. I'm changing the name so I recognize it as XLS. So I've solved my problem of being able to sort correctly. Now I can go to my data model. And there's there's a reason why I have one more thing to do. There's a reason why I have to do one more thing. I want to look at both data sets in one area. So I'm going to import those Excel files I just created into my model, right? So this time I'm using the data. It's cleaned, right? The data is clean now. Because the data is clean, I don't have to copy and paste stuff. So I'm going to load it using the data. So I'm going to have a new tab. It's table format, so it calls it data. Okay. And because it's an Excel workbook, this time I'm getting the data as an Excel workbook, aren't I? Okay. So this time I'm loading it after I cleaned it manually. And now voila, they both appear in here. Why does that matter? Because now I can append, I can use Power Queries append. I can select my tables. I'm joining, tables. My table 1, 2. For some reason, you have to select 3 or more tables, even though we're only doing 2. I got both of them in here. It's telling me, look, we are going to take the contents of both tables and in SQL we call it union. We're going to do a union on both so that both appear in one place. I'm going to close and load, and you'll notice that you know you'll quickly notice that yep, I got an append table. Now I can properly sort both tables, and I can sort both tables in one place. I don't have to go to the first one, and then go to the second one and somehow guess, which is the highest. Like if you have lots of tables and you merge, you right now you're only concerned with which is the highest, right? You're not concerned with the where it came from because you're looking at high level metrics. Okay. Again, we've covered a lot of in-depth details. You'll remember the first time we had to transform using a manual process and the error messages. And not only did we have to do it for each table, but then after we merged it, we had to do it again because remember the problem in ETL was Excel, the Windows environment, is natively converting a CSV file, and if it notices any item in the column is not a numerical one, it's not going to convert the items in the column over to a number. It's going to leave them as text. So you had to manually do it 3 times. But this reinforcement explains why. Because it's doing things in an automated way. It's doing the best it can. When we did it manually, we opened the CSV file directly in Excel, saved it as a text file, opened it in Excel, saved it as an Excel file for each file, and really were able to do it in a more strict, easy to understand way. I'm going to save my model. And that's the end of our very, very heavy session on ETL. I really appreciate your time. And if you get anything out of this, just like and comment this, is because I'm going to post it in LinkedIn and on YouTube. So we were taking a breather and we're turning to why we're calling this extract transform command. This is pretty straightforward. CSV files that we have on our server, on our desktop, This is slide one. So we were taking a breather and we're coming to why we're calling this extract, transform, and load. It's pretty straightforward. CSV files that we have on our server, on our desktop. The data tab transform that to identify. So without further ado, let's take a look at ETL. So we were taking a breather and we're coming to why we're calling this the visual on a graph. You understand why did it stop